If you are someone with a large amount of muscle mass who aims to keep it and you want to transfer into endurance or HYROX type sports, then you are going to want to listen to this until the end. But before I go into this is essentially my HYROX prep number 1, and this is the exact start point. So to give you a little bit of a frame, I've been on a body composition transformation over the last 8 to 10 weeks, where I did a photo shoot 2 weeks ago, just before I traveled back to the UK for my team event. Photo shoot prep went unbelievably well, and in all honesty, my eyes were firmly set on that. However, now my transition has come into prepping for the HYROX, which is going to be the Amsterdam Pro in January this year. So I got back from the UK and I believe that I had COVID, which was a huge wake-up call. And this isn't really the update that I wanted to be doing, because the first week of prep has been, well, a complete and utter write-off. And the first session that I did back, I thought, you know what, like, let's dust off the running trainers. I have not ran all year. And I thought, I'm gonna go and do a quick 5K. And I set the treadmill at a pace that I'd do a 25-minute 5K, and I did actually manage to do it. However, my heart rate hit 195 beats per minute, and I was at 165 beats within the first 3 minutes because I was still suffering from COVID, and I had my Whoop band absolutely screaming at me. So it's not really the first week that I would have liked, because I've had to completely and utterly scale back the training, but it has given me an invaluable lesson. Listen to the Whoop band, it's always right. But what I want to speak about today are 3 key points, and the last one is going to be the single most important if you're genuinely serious about holding on to all of your muscle whilst transferring across into this. Because most people are instantly going to think, if I have a load of muscle, I'm going to lose it all if I then go into a HYROX, which actually isn't the case. And I want to be able to prove that over the next 12-week preps that I'm going to do. But right now, I want to tell you the 3 main things I am doing to make sure that I do exactly that. So number 1, sounds obvious, but we still need to be weight training. There's a famous saying, what built the muscle is going to keep the muscle, and that is 100% correct. However, there is a little bit of a twist to that, because we are not going to go in the gym and do the exact same training routine, the same training split, and also the same training volume. Because if you do, you are an idiot, and you might as well wave goodbye to your muscle there and then. Because what we need to realize is HYROX in itself is an incredibly challenging sport, and it is going to require a huge amount of recovery demand. So if we think we can carry on training in our physique, body composition, or bodybuilding, whatever we want to call it, domain, and then layer on all of this additional cardio as well as, and think that we're then going to be able to recover from both of those things, then you are absolutely mad. You can try it, but good luck. you will not sustain it very long. So the first thing that I would consider is the training split. So typically most people will probably train, maybe 5, maybe 6 days a week when it comes to weight training. This for me now has been brought down to 4 days maximum. And I actually say maximum because I have 3 baseline days. I'm going down to very simple push-pull leg split to make sure everything's trained across the course of the week. And then I have an additional arm top-up day, but only if my recovery allows me to do it. And that'll be based on this beautiful thing called the Whoop band. And what I'm doing in these sessions is a little bit different, and it does genuinely pain me, because I am no longer training to complete and utter failure on compound exercises. And the reason for that is it just drives unnecessary stimulus. So when we're training to complete and utter failure, i.e. I physically cannot complete another concentric rep without assistance, you are exceeding recovery volume. And what we need to understand is if you don't have the food and the recovery capacity to recover from it, we have no right to be doing it. We have to be realistic here. We are not going to be building extra muscle tissue whilst we're doing HYROX. The best possible scenario is to maintain the muscle that we've got. So going above and beyond our recoverable volume and taking every single set to failure is just stupid, because all we're doing is basically digging a hole that we then can't get ourselves out of. Now, it does pay me because I hate training like this, is super important. So in my context, I'm taking my isolation movements to failure, but I'm not taking my compound movements to failure. That's gonna make sure that I stay within my recoverable volume. And then when it comes to the actual number of sets and the intensifiers, I will usually program things like muscle rounds, rest pause sets, drop sets, all that kind of stuff. That has completely gone out the window right now. And what we have to remember is when we speak about recovery, everyone always thinks about what's the next best supplement, what's the best steroid, what's the best this and that. It's kind of all irrelevant. The most important thing you can actually do when it comes to recovery is just do less. Like, that's as simple as it is, so you don't have to recover from it. So that's what the training has now become about. It's about aligning the weight training to still do enough to keep the stimulus, because at the end of the day, we have to pick up the mechanical tension through the muscle to remind the body to hold on to that muscle, but we don't want to exceed it to the point that we're going to be breaking the muscle tissue down and we're not got the sufficient nutrients and recovery capacity to actually recover from it. So that is the changes to training. I would be reducing training frequency. I wouldn't be training to failure, and if you do, only isolations and not compound sets. And then finally, I'll be reducing any excess volume, so reducing number of working sets and also our intensifiers too. So number 2 would be using this weird and wonderful thing called a Whoop band. And I'll be honest, I have used an Oura ring, and I actually have that on my finger right now, and I have not turned it on for the last 2 years. It's now a fashion accessory. I've had an Apple Watch as well that I didn't really rate, and I have been surprisingly very, very impressed with the Whoop band. The main reason being is because when I feel like shit getting out of bed, this confirms it. Because usually with tracking devices, you can get up out of bed and you can feel fresh, and then your recovery on your band says 2%, and you're like, that doesn't even make sense because I feel fine. And it actually ends up changing your mentality, almost like a placebo effect. But the most impressive thing for me here is it actually corresponds to exactly how I feel. So for me, that's essentially what I want. I want something that is going to keep me accountable every single day. So I know when I can absolutely fully send a session and when I can't. And truth be told, that's something that I'm struggling with, because the bodybuilder in me only knows 0 and 100. Like, it only knows train to failure. But train to failure on HYROX does not actually apply. You need to be disciplined. And I don't mean disciplined in the sense of always killing yourself. I mean disciplined in actually being able to pace yourself and not go absolutely balls to the wall, because it's all about maintaining threshold pace. So actually listening to this, it's a one thing buying it, the second thing is actually listening to it is very, very important. And this is also going to allow me to track other metrics. So the main one that I'm really tracking right now is my HRV, which is your heart rate variability. And a lot of people think that comes down to just your heart rate, but it is actually one of the best indicators of your nervous system health and your readiness to actually train, because of the variability and basically how your heart and electrical impulses work. So when you have a high HRV, it means your body's in a very resilient state, and that means you can push your training sessions higher and you can sustain, zone 4, zone 5 cardio for longer periods of time, because your body's ready for that recovery, but also the performance too. But it also allows very, very accurate tracking of sleep, of steps and everything else, and also VO2 max, which is something that I'm really trying to progress over time. So it's making me really accountable towards my sleep, towards my HRV, towards my VO2 max, and just making sure that I'm tracking all of the variables. And this is where I've never really done this when I've been in physique or just body composition. Like, I probably should have in hindsight, but now this is a much more endeavoring when it comes to the performance aspect. I need to make sure I'm monitoring my recovery so specifically to make sure I know when I can push and also know when I can pull back, because otherwise I'll just burn my candle at both ends. And we all know we can only progress from what we can recover from. So if we always know where our recovery capacity is, it's going to be much easier for us to basically self-regulate our training volume and our output in terms of intensity. And the final point this leads me on to is the nutrition changes that I have had to make going into this prep, because I've only ever really eaten purely from a body composition standpoint. I've ever been in crazy high surpluses, eating 6,000-7,000 calories back in the peak off-season bodybuilder days of 110 kilo Joe who couldn't walk down the street. And then I've also been in absolute poverty calories of eating 1,500 calories trying to make weight for shows. Like, my extremes have always swayed from one to the other. However, I now need to basically apply all of my nutrition understanding and knowledge into the HYROX domain. And the main thing that kind of stands out for me is understanding that if you genuinely want to maintain body composition, maintain muscle mass, we need to just kind of break it down macronutrient by macronutrient. So the first off being protein. A lot of people would say, reduce this down, you're not trying to build muscle. I think keep protein super high. Mine's currently at 300 grams per day, and that's weighing around about 95 kilo right now. And the main reason some people people would say that's too high, you can't digest it, blah, blah, blah. However, I would rather have a really high level of protein because that is gonna make sure that we're gonna hold on to as much muscle tissue as we can. I would rather have an abundance of protein than anything else because we know that it doesn't easily convert across into body fat because of the processes of how amino acids are basically broken down, digested. They'll genuinely be excreted out of the body. So keep protein really high. That'll be point number one. Carbohydrate wise, this is where it changes a little bit. So in bodybuilding, I have gone through carb cycling approaches. So some days will be low carb, medium, and some are high. And the same approach is now translated into HYROX. So I don't program super hard HYROX sessions every day. Like I have 2 to 3 days per week, which are my full send, like HYROX simulator type days. So before those days, what I am now doing is I'm basically carbing up and running a high carb day prior to that day. The main reason being is what we've got to understand is when we train in a HYROX domain, it's going to be very glycogen demanding, which means it's the stored forms of carbohydrates and glucose that sits within the muscle. So we want to be kind of backloading those carbs the night before and the day before. So when we train on that day, we are ready. Our glycogen stores are topped up, our energy tank is full. So we are ready to fully send that session. So for me at the moment, my hard sessions are my rest days, which I'm not doing the weight training. So at the moment, that is Tuesday and a Friday. So that simply means on a Monday and then on a Thursday, I'm going to have high carbohydrate days where I double my carbohydrate intake to 500 grams, carb load prior to that day to ensure that I can actually sustain the level of performance that I need to. And then also when it comes to carbohydrates, I've now introduced an intra-workout carbohydrate in the form of cyclic dextrin, and that's just going to make sure that I'm sustaining my blood glucose levels throughout the training session, because now it's not about body composition, it's not about being in a deficit, it's not about having low blood sugar levels and oxidating body fat. It's about maximizing performance, and we need readily available glucose. And I do really favor highly branched cyclic dextrin because it's a complex carb in the sense that it doesn't have these crazy spikes of insulin, but it actually allows for sustained release of carbohydrates through the session without having the gastric distress that you get from a lot of complex carbs because of its high molecular weight. So that's a big one that I would always look at, is in those hard sessions, make sure you're fueling yourself in the workout as well to make sure blood sugar levels are topped up. And then when it comes to fat intake, I have slightly higher fats in my days now, especially in and around that training window. And again, I like to have more fats prior to my HYROX sessions because it's going to keep my blood sugar levels stable. And I've spoken about this before, but including MCT oil or coconut oil, which is going to be the fastest acting form of fats in terms of medium chain triglycerides because it allows it to be oxidated and broken down a little bit easier. So those are just a few factors that I'm considering in my nutrition. But the one thing that stands out above and beyond anything else is I'm no longer in a calorie deficit. My calories sit at a maintenance across the week now, and then I'll have these 2 high carbohydrate days that allow myself to spike upwards. And obviously not only is that going to help with performance, when we tie it back to protecting muscle, we know that carbohydrates are muscle sparing. So making sure we have high carbs around these sessions to obviously negate the effects of catabolism and breaking muscle tissue down because we have a high insulinogenic response is one of the things that we also need to look at. So that's just a little bit of a wrap up of the things that I'm focusing on right now when it comes to the training, nutrition and recovery element. And I think if you generally have a lot of muscle and you come in from like a physique or bodybuilding background and you want to do these endurance sports, you don't just have to kind of hold your hands up and say, I'm going to lose all my muscle and just give into it. There's definitely things and programming mechanisms that you can be putting in place to make sure you maximize it. The question is, am I going to be able to maximize all the muscle I've got? I really don't know. And it's going to be person specific because at the end of the day, I've had my muscle tissue for probably the best part of 10 years. So when you have a level of density to your physique and that muscle has been there for a long time, it's going to be a lot harder for me to actually lose that. Whereas someone who has only just acquired that muscle in the last year or two, maybe that muscle tissue will go. But all I know is we can do things and we can put things in place that are actually going to help protect that muscle mass. And essentially, that's what we want to do. Not only because it takes a long time to build this muscle and we want to keep it, but also from a basal metabolic rate standpoint as well, because that's going to make sure that we don't downregulate our metabolism, and it means that we're going to actually stay lean year round too, which of course we all want. So hopefully that helps, and that's a little bit of a wrap up. But next episode, I will run into more about this HYROX prep as I document as I go through it. You're gonna see training, nutrition, recovery, and anything else in between that I think is gonna be worthwhile and give people valuable as I make my transition from being a fitness coach into a human performance coach.